Hello and welcome to Town Centres and the Future of the High Street. My name is Katrina Han and this is a recording by Experian for collectively Camberley. So today I'm going to take you through the key retail consumer trends, what this means for the High Street and most importantly what this means for Camberley. So turning to the key consumer trends, well, consumer confidence is growing and we're now shopping when, where and however we want. Retail sales figures for the 12 months up to December 2013 were up by 1.6%, and online shopping for the same time period was up by a staggering 14%, and no doubt the figures for 2014 will be even higher. In fact, consumer confidence hit a 9-year high in May of this year, and there's a variety of reasons to explain this. It's certainly been buoyed by employment growth, by a buoyant housing market, by low interest rates for now, and by loosening credit conditions. We're also becoming increasingly savvy, and we're researching using both on and offline channels and a range of different channels to find the right product at the best price. So in 2013, around Christmas, Experian conducted consumer research. We spoke with over 2,000 people using methods both on street surveys and also online in order to reach out and understand their customer journey during the festive period. And much of the statistics that we will present in this presentation have been drawn from the research we conducted in December 2013. So what we found is very much that browsing habits are changing, and where the computer and laptop would have been the absolute main and only device in order to browse, we're now seeing a real growth in other methods. The tablet is possibly the most staggering given the length of time that it's been around. Here we find that some 11% of respondents said that they use it as their main device to browse. And actually we can see from the right-hand side of this slide that the appeal of the tablet is widespread. So Experian has a socio-demographic segmentation where we categorise the population into a variety of different groups. And you can see from the examples that I've pulled out here, all of which are above the average of 11% and come from a wide spectrum of the population. So we have both affluent groups, Group A, Alpha Territory, through to the less affluent Group K, upper floor living, also various geographies, so we've got Group C, rural solitude, and young families, so different life stages. Use of mobile has also grown, and use of mobile particularly for purchasing. So 4% now use their mobile phone for this reason, and for under 25s, it's twice as likely that they'll use this method. One of the main reasons that's holding some people back from using their mobile phone is really around security, and this is something which providers and retailers need to work on to really make the consumer feel that it's a safe and secure process. 35% of consumers used a click and collect service over Christmas 2013, and this figure is no doubt going to rise for 2014. In fact, research by Planet Retail suggests that by 2017, as many as 80% almost of online shoppers will be using click and collect. And actually one of the biggest challenges is really in providing sufficient fulfillment options so that customers feel that click and collect is a really valid option for them. And our research tallies with this. So research suggested that the traditional collection method was still the most used. So collection in store, 30% of respondents said they use this method. Box services, on the other hand, were only used by 10%. That's, for example, Amazon Box. And there's also been a real growth in the use of third-party stores, and that's through organisations like Collect Plus that have enabled this to happen. And this variety of options is really great for independents. So it's something which I think we're going to see a lot more of in the years to come. Thirdly, consumers are increasingly demanding an enlivened experience from the high street. In fact, 57% of people from our research said that they like to touch and feel before they buy, and this is especially true for luxury goods. This really tallies with trends that we're seeing from high-end luxury retailers, some of whom who started online have actually now looked for physical premises in order to show and demonstrate their goods. 36% of consumers said they shop offline for entertainment and leisure activities. Again, these are the types of activities that they wouldn't be able to do online. And they're very much demanding a more enlivened store experience. And we've seen a number of retailers responding with, for example, free coffees, drinks events, and various other activities going on in store. The fourth and final trend is around feedback and the fact that now the customer is king, particularly with respect to instant feedback. So what we saw from our research was that a staggering 71% of consumers said they'd use customer reviews to help them make a purchasing decision. And clearly this is something which retailers ignore at their peril, particularly when we find that a negative tweet, for example, could reach as many as 15,000 people in a relatively short period of time. Clearly this is something which retailers need to be at the forefront of, not only to address the negative concern, but actually to use as a great source of research in order to improve and create great customer service. So what does this really mean for the high street? Well, it's certainly been quite doom and gloom over the last 4, 5, maybe slightly more years. We've seen a real decline in terms of use of the high street. And this has been due to a range of factors, so particularly the challenging economic climate we've experienced, but also a lot of the retail trends that I've discussed, so the increased e-commerce, but also things like supermarket shopping and the might of out-of-town centres. But the tide is turning and high streets really need to act on this and to compete in order to attract shoppers. So the map on the right-hand side is a snapshot of footfall that was taken in 2012 and actually is giving a bit of an indication that things are on the up. So what we saw here was that for all regions, apart from the North East and the West Midlands, there had actually been a growth in terms of footfall, so numbers of people out on the high street, and it was particularly strong for the South East, which really bodes well for Camberley. There's also been a dramatic shift in the mix and makeup of retail and leisure facilities over the last decade, and what we're really seeing is a real shift towards leisure and entertainment. So as you might expect, over the last decade, the types of retailers that we've seen really suffer are the ones who offer services that are very readily available online. So for example, music shops, greeting card shops, books. Conversely, the retailers that we've seen grow and the leisure operators that we've seen grow are the cafes, fast food outlets and restaurants, as well as the convenience stores, reflective of our changing consumer habits. The types of consumers that we're seeing on the high street are also changing. So tomorrow's consumers are very much going to be heavily reliant on technology, and they're also likely to be older, reflection of our ageing population. So ensuring that we cater to these groups is absolutely critical. So what does this mean for Camberley? Well, the Camberley catchment, according to Experian, covers a group of around 350,000 people. And that includes the Royal Military Academy of Sandhurst, which is clearly a key part of the catchment, with the armed forces fully integrated into local life. And what we've seen from the data is that the catchment is really characterised by a really affluent group, so affluent professionals and older families. The chart on the right-hand side looks at the catchment of Camberley versus the UK population, and this is broken down again by the mosaic groups I mentioned earlier. And what we can see here is that it's some of the most affluent groups that are really highly overrepresented. So a figure over 100 would be overrepresented. Alpha territory, professional rewards, suburban mindsets, careers and kids, and new homemakers are all overrepresented and all represent those more affluent types. We can also see that the catchment has a high tendency to use e-commerce. Again, this is something that's very important for retailers to think about. It's not only important to look at the population now, but also in the future. So looking at how we think the catchment will look in 2018, we anticipate that just under 60% will come from juggling parents and top table. And again, these are two of the most affluent groups with slightly different needs. So top table, potentially slightly older, they are looking for leisure, retail and culture, and use a variety of methods, but particularly love independent shops. They're also likely to use technology, and that's in contrast to juggling parents who similarly are quite cash rich, but they are looking for a greener and often more sustainable choices, and often very time poor. They're also very likely, in fact more likely than top table, to be an early adopter of technology. What this slide now shows is really what, in terms of expenditure, the local catchment is likely to make. And what it really suggests here is that spend per head is above average compared to the UK. So again, it's giving us a really clear impression that the population of Camberley has quite a high level of disposable income. And what this does is it breaks down the expenditure into various groups and sets the expenditure against the UK average expenditure for that type of category. So for example, something like jewellery, clocks and watches has a spend index of 144, whereby the UK is 100, so 144 is significantly above the UK average in terms of size of spend. Conversely, footwear, which is 93 for Camberley, again would be 100 for the UK, people tend to spend slightly less on footwear. Essentially what this is showing is that there is a tendency for the catchment area to spend more on some of the luxury items, so things like jewellery, watches, glassware, and again, what it really points to is capacity for more high-end stores in order to really cater for this market. Click and collect also looks to be an area which really could be developed further within Camberley. So this chart actually pulls out again some of the key groups within green who are overrepresented within Camberley, and the chart itself shows those respondents from our Christmas survey that tended to use a box service. So that's things like Amazon Box. And what we can see here is that although the green groups, the overrepresented groups for Camberley, are not the absolute top two, they are a fairly solid users of things like box services, particularly the alpha territory, which, as you'll recall from the slide before, were highly overrepresented within the population. Likewise, liberal opinions are also far more likely to use a box service, and again are overrepresented within Camberley. Again, what this really suggests is that there could be strong appetite for these types of services. And Collect Plus, from research that we did, does currently operate within Camberley, but as of October there were no Collect Plus sites within the town centre. So again, that might be something to think about for the future. Just looking at the areas of competition and centres of competition for Camberley, we can see clearly from this chart, which shows the leakage of the catchment population to other areas, that the top three competitors would be Guildford, Bracknell and Woking, and they contribute to about 20% of the leakage. And examining in a bit more detail how these three places stack up against Camberley, we can see that Camberley, obviously large urban centre, has the mall and atrium leisure facility, and with the bid, collectively Camberley has a real clear ambition to grow. actually really focuses on probably the mid-market range, with a good range of leisure, services and retail offer, and good quality civic and cultural offer. That's in contrast to Bracknell, which has a legacy of 60s sort of new town development, but has been undergoing major redevelopment. And whilst Bracknell really focuses perhaps more at a low or mid-market offer, it has been really developing and could pose an increasing threat to Camberley, attracting many more of the catchment to shop there. Likewise, and potentially more so, Woking has also undergone and is undergoing major redevelopment to refresh its physical realm, and it has really fantastic transport links back into London. So whilst it also offers largely a low or mid-market offer, it's done a great deal of work to enhance the attractiveness of its physical environment and has a really growing leisure and cultural offer. So again, it is a growing competitor. And finally, Guildford, which is obviously very important centre and one which is steeped in history and has a really vibrant cultural life, actually arguably targets the more classic of the Camberley catchment in terms of a mid to high-end offer. It has a wide range of leisure facilities, and it really does attract both local population and visitors. One challenge it does face, though, is transport congestion. So really something to think about, that there are some real key competitors in terms of centres who are really undergoing quite a lot of development. So what do we recommend for Camberley? Well, for Camberley itself, it's very much about raising awareness of a unique offer for Camberley, and this is something which town centres are grappling with across the UK. Secondly, and given the amount of information we've demonstrated on the importance of digital, it's really to get on board with digital, and linked to that, to grow the click and collect strategies. It's going to be hugely important, not only this Christmas, but many Christmases to come. Also, to develop the leisure and service offer. We can see the way in which consumer habits are changing, and people are increasingly demanding a leisure offer. So making sure that's in place to attract them to the high street is key. And for businesses, Camberley has a great deal going for it, and it's thinking about it as a great place to locate. And then about thinking about your target audience and taking on board some of the things that we've talked around the high-end and affluent nature of the target audience. Also thinking about how you can maximise some of those consumer trends that we're seeing, so the growing consumer confidence and the fact that many consumers are online. So, really getting to grips with online, particularly small independents that can struggle with that. Then thinking about the variety of channels that people are going to be accessing your shop or your leisure service from, so really getting to grips with mobile and tablet offerings. And finally, again, really launching that click and collect strategy if you haven't already done so. It's absolutely crucial. Enlivening the store and customer experience, and ignoring customer feedback at your peril, as we saw just how important and how much of an impact a negative feedback can be, but how valuable it can also be if it can be used to improve your customer experience. So that brings the webinar to a close, and there's information on there if you would like to contact us to find out more, and thank you very much for listening.